Hello, my name is Courtney Erickson, and today I will be presenting my Cultural Awareness Task presentation on the book Why Gender Matters, What Parents and Teachers Need to Know About the Emerging Signs of Sex Differences, written by Leonard Sachs. Sachs wrote Why Gender Matters to inform parents and teachers about the psychological differences between boys and girls. In the book, Sachs explored how these differences affect how children are raised, disciplined, and educated. Biological differences between boys and girls affect how they think, feel, and act. Understanding the differences between boys and girls allows both parents and educators to approach children in a way that suits their unique strengths and challenges, while going beyond that of the typical gender stereotypes. The first issue I will be addressing is differences in hearing between boys and girls. Hearing is a major difference between genders that is often ignored within education and upbringing. According to research, it has been proven that girls have better hearing abilities than boys. This factor attributes to boys often becoming distracted or unfocused during classroom settings, and girls mistaking a lesser tone of voice for yelling. These issues can be partly attributed to hearing differences in boys and girls. To resolve this issue, the following teaching strategies can be implemented in the classroom. The first strategy is to adjust classroom seating arrangements. Typically, boys will choose to sit at the back of the classroom, whereas girls will sit in the front. Due to hearing differences, classroom seating arrangements should consider these gender differences, placing boys near the front of the classrooms and girls in the back. Another strategy is to assess your audience. Who are you instructing? If you're instructing girls, it may be beneficial to use a softer and more gentle voice. If you're teaching boys, a louder, more confrontational voice may be beneficial. Adjusting seating arrangements and tone of voice can directly improve both boys' and girls' engagement and ability to focus, impacting their growth and success in their education. The second issue is gender differences in confrontation. Moderate stress improves boys' performance, whereas the same stress degrades a young girl's performance. Within educational and working environments, boys are often energized by confrontation or tasks that are time constrained. However, very few girls will flourish in these high pressure environments. To cater to these learning differences in genders, it must be recognized that boys operate best under environments of moderate stress. When instructing boys, it may be helpful to implement activities that require team collaboration, time constraints, and rewards for correct answers. Boys prefer activities that are small detail focused over the bigger picture and are motivated by a confrontational style of teaching. Girls, on the other hand, operate best in the opposite environment, that of lesser stress. When instructing girls, it is important to focus on the bigger objective rather than the small details. Giving them unlimited time to complete an activity can create a calmer and more relaxed environment for girls, directly impacting their success and performance outcome. Sachs uses an example to explain these different teaching strategies on page 90 of Why Gender Matters. He writes, "Recently I had the privilege of sitting in on Trent Anderson's 7th grade English class. Mr. Anderson divided the class into teams. They had to answer questions about John Steinbeck's The Pearl. Mr. Anderson began calling on a particular boy from each team in turn. The team's score goes up or down depending on whether the boy knows the answer. All the boys are called on at least once. Everybody has to know the book, or your team will lose. So the boys work together. They collaborate as a team to win the competition. This approach is not as useful for girls. Amy Van Drat, who teaches at an all-girls school, told me about her routine on test days. I have the girls start by taking their shoes off. Relaxing, she said. We sit in a circle and just help each other chill for a few minutes. Then I pass the tests, but I never use time tests. I let each girl have as long as she needs." The third issue I will be addressing is differences in friendships between boys and girls. Girls' friendships are face to face, boys' friendships are shoulder to shoulder. So, how do differences in friendship apply to teaching approaches? Because girls prefer face to face interactions, talking to one another, when teaching girls, you should make an effort to smile and look her in the eye. Girls are given nonverbal reassurance by the use of eye contact. However, when teaching boys, these things can have the opposite effect. Boys associate eye contact with things like discipline or reprimand, and smiling is something that is odd. It does not give them reassurance as it does girls. So, when instructing boys, the best approach is to sit down next to him and look at the materials shoulder to shoulder. This reminds me of the book Captivating, which is written by John and Stassi Eldridge, where the design of a woman is explored. God designed woman for a relationship. Women are relational to the core of our beings. Even in our preference to educational instruction, we see God's design remains consistent. The fourth issue I'll be addressing is differences in risk taking between genders. According to research, boys overestimate their abilities whereas girls underestimate their abilities. Have you ever heard someone insist that girls are smarter than boys because often girls receive better grades than boys do? This could directly be associated with the differences of risk taking in genders. And Sachs explores this idea, stating that boys often overestimate their abilities taking classes that are much more difficult than girls, while girls tend to take classes that they are more comfortable with and knowledgeable in already. Boys overestimate their abilities, they take risks, and taking a class that is much too difficult could be an explanation of this common assumption. When girls and boys explore new situations, conquering their fears, this gives them the ability to face new challenges and conquer them as well. So, girls should be encouraged to take risks in a healthy and safe environment. When girls take these risks, this fosters a sense of joy and pride in their accomplishments. Leonard Sachs explains this concept on page 50 of Why Gender Matters. If a girl takes a risk and fails, she may end up being more risk averse, not less. The feeling of weakness and inability and the tendency to low self esteem are so integrated into girls thinking that training can be counterproductive if we do not know what we are doing. Start with something that girls know that they can do, then gradually let them build up that wall, stretching their abilities to the limit. On the other hand, boys should be encouraged to be more risk averse. This can be done by asserting authority as the teacher, taking charge of the situation, and helping students to accurately assess their skills. Provide boys with the ability to accurately assess their skills, and they will not overestimate them, taking unnecessary and compromising risks. The final issue I'll be addressing is a lack of awareness of gender differences within our current society. There are no differences in what girls and boys can learn, but there are big differences in the best ways to teach them. And ignorance of gender difference leads to ineffective approaches to teaching. These differences should be understood, they should not be ignored. When teaching girls, it is important to recognize their preferences. Girls prefer fiction, short stories, and novels. They enjoy emotional books where they can analyze the characters. When teaching these books, they prefer subjective activities, open ended questions, and participating in activities like role playing. However, this approach does not work with most boys. Boys prefer nonfiction and stories about battle or adventure. Boys don't prefer the touchy-feely books with weak, miserable characters. They prefer action and objective activities that cater to their natural interests and strengths, such as map building. Sachs refutes the assumption that this teaching approach reinforces gender stereotypes on page 112 of Why Gender Matters. Critics object that this approach reinforces gender stereotypes. I respond that the most pernicious gender stereotype is the one that says boys don't like to read. Let's break that stereotype down first. Get every child excited about learning. Once kids have discovered for themselves that reading can be fun and exciting, then you can worry about broadening their tastes in literature. Genesis 1:26 through 27 states, Then God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God. God created gender. God establishes gender. Gender is not a feeling, it is a fact. Gender is not separated from sex, it is not a social construct. Gender is what we've been created as, and it is beautiful. Our identity is not uncertain in Christ. Our identities are not defined by culture or influenced by our environments. Our identity is not our feelings. Our identity is and should be in Christ. We should enjoy gender and enjoy sex as God has created it and established it. We should enjoy what God has perfectly called us to be.